Now, as you probably just saw from that footage just there, what was originally a very standard run turned into something pretty exceptional, and after almost 300 hours of gameplay, I've done almost everything in Elden Ring, Nightreign, but this was by far the most fun run I've had, with what turned out to be an almost immortal build with crazy damage and just ridiculous stats on my character. Now for the relics, I had pretty standard relics on. I had one of my favourite ones that was boosting my health and also helps out with a bit of team survivability. Then I had something with a little bit of damage mitigation going on, and of course the be all and end all, one that everyone should be using, and that's the one that you can purchase from the collector's signboard in order to grab yourself a whole bunch of extra damage whenever you're unlocking those Evergels. Then I queued up, went into an expedition with one of my friends, and because the bosses had rotated, we were going to be taking on the Gaping Jaw. As per standard, what we did, we made sure that we leveled up at least once, because tackling enemies or Evergels without having at least that level 2 usually goes wrong most times when I'm playing. So we did that, took out a few enemies, and then went and grabbed level 2, and then headed off to a church to grab an extra flask. Straight after that, we went to an Evergel, and starting off very strong, I made sure that I put in a lot of damage with an absolutely massive swing and a miss. And then straight afterwards, we managed to play a little bit better, take them out, and grab ourselves a little bit of runes in the process, upgrading their level once more. From there, we headed to the nearest mine just in case we couldn't find anything good on our expedition, because sometimes having that blacksmithing stone too can really help out in a pinch. So after taking down the pumpkin head, we managed to pick one of those up and then head on to the very next Evergel. Again, tackling the enemies, and as you saw it right at the start of the video, it not going too well because I did get taken out in the process, but afterwards I was rezzed, we took them down, and I managed to pick up another buff as well as another few runes. After that, we got what I would consider lucky because we did get attacked by a fell omen. However, it was a bit of a bad timing because we were already taking on a raw revan. The odds weren't stacked in our favour, so we needed to come up with a cunning plan in order to tackle the situation. So after swiftly relocating to the area above and pretty much making sure we avoided one of the bosses altogether, we went straight back to work taking on the fell omen, and after a whole bunch of dodging and getting hit in the face later, we finally managed to take it down, grabbing ourselves some tasty runes and as well as that a really nice buff in the process, with the buff being Traces of the Grace-Given Lord. This means now whenever we're coming across newly found sites of grace, so when we're defeating bosses, going to certain areas where we're activating new graces, we're going to get a slight attack power boost. If I remember correctly, this does actually completely disperse if you do get knocked down, so from here on we were trying to play a little bit safe just to make sure we could get a bit of additional damage our way. Heading off to the next location, because we did still need to level up, we decided to go straight to the castle and take on all of the banished knights and the mini bosses that were in there. We managed to take out quite a few from above, drop down to the middle grounds and take a few more out whilst we were there. Honestly, this was working out really well, but the buffs I was getting wasn't the best ones, I'd say. They were very mediocre, but I did manage to get quite a nice one because we got the extra 10% rune acquisition, and then we headed down to the very bottom area of the castle, and it was at this point when things took a massive turn for the better. Honestly, I was not expecting this in the slightest, but it was definitely welcomed. We had a nice easy boss down the bottom here, so we absolutely decimated him. Then I went to pick up my reward, and honestly, it was one of the better ones. I could give myself a nice little buff to my damage if I wanted to. I don't really see many of this dropping, so I was quite happy with picking this weapon up, until my friend decided to tell me he had found something that was better. Honestly, not many people would have dropped this for me, so much appreciated, Stiff, because he knew I was still making content on this game, and he thought I'd make a fun little video.
Family.
But yeah, for anyone that doesn't notice, this is the Grafted sword, one of two of the most powerful weapons in the game. Personally, I think it's the strongest overall for just the crazy buffs it gives you, because the perk you get on it, the Power of Vengeance, means that you're going to get a boost to all of your damage, your stats, every single thing you've got on your character, every time you're taking down some enemies. This can work out crazy, but I've only seen it a couple of times in the game, and most times I've picked it up when I'm very near the end, so this was definitely going to be a special run for me. Now at this point, what you usually do, you go around camps, you go anywhere you can, you kind of do the opposite to how you'd usually play the expeditions, because you want to take on and take down as many individual enemies as possible. You just want to knock them over to enhance your build. But the zone was closing in on us, so instead of that we had to run all the way to the inner circle and fortunately take on another Evergel in the process before we made it into the final first night boss. And here's where things got really cool, because I was very fortunate because it actually turned out to be the boss, the Duke's Dear Freya. And as you probably know, they actually spawn a whole bunch of ads continuously during the boss fight, which funnily enough count towards this buff on your character. Now, we were here for quite some time, and honestly I felt a little bit bad in the end because we were with a random player, and I don't think he really knew what was going on at the start. I think he must have gathered what was by the end, because we were just going around taking out all of the small spiders dotted around the place rather than actually attacking the boss. This was quite fun to see because the stats on my character were ranking up ridiculously high, and even though I was only at like level 10, after some time I managed to get my attack power all the way up to around about 1700, and my stats were completely off the charts. Honestly, this was quite ridiculous and a lot of fun to see, because I actually had more HP, FP and stamina than I knew what to do with. Now honestly, at this point, if I was playing in a complete team of all friends, I'd probably be staying here even longer. But if anyone knows what the maximum amount of damage you actually can get on this weapon is, please let me know in the comments, as I'd love to hear from you. But we decided we'd definitely taken enough time by now, because we were playing with a random player, so we decided to take the boss down and move on to have a lot of fun taking on and hopefully destroying the rest of the bosses. At this point, I was nigh on Invincible, especially at this stage. Heading to the Rotted Woods, I actually came across a bell-bearing hunter who still managed to put up quite a nice fight, getting the first blow in, but then after that he didn't really last very long because the damage I was putting out was just far too crazy. Gotta say, after how many times these things have taken me down, hitting him for this much damage and taking him down relatively easy was definitely a sight to behold. And then after that, we managed to go all the way over and make the stats for the character even crazier. Because we were playing the Rotted Woods, we picked up the buff here, which gives us post damage as well as around about 25% extra health. At level 14, I was sitting at around about 15,000 HP. Honestly, if you haven't tried this sword yet, as soon as you do get it, make sure you use it because it is just ridiculous. And you don't really need to do much of it. I believe you just got to have it equipped in your secondary or primary hand in order to actually get the buff affecting you. The amount of extra stats you get for your character is quite game breaking, but in a good way. And the fun thing about this, it works on absolutely every build. So whether you were using it as an Iron Eye, whether you were using it as a spellcaster, whatever you were doing, and you're absolutely good to go. From here we went around just completely massacring everything that was available to us, taking out all of the toughest enemies and destroying every single thing we could find in the Rotted Woods. Funny thing was, the amount of damage I was putting out was quite ridiculous, but I also wasn't really finding any great items to kind of buff the damage and make it even more powerful. So the base stats was just about everything that was keeping our high damage. After tackling and taking down pretty much everything there was in the Rotted Woods, we finally made it over all the way to the second boss. Now at this stage I wanted to see how much damage I was actually doing with my ultimate, and I thought I might one-shot him, but instead, in true Raider form, what I did was completely encased him in stone so that I couldn't actually get to him and he'd live a little bit longer than he probably would have if I hadn't used this. So what we did, we took out a few of his ads instead, then waited for him to come out, and then decided to punish him instead for the mistake that I'd made. At this point we were able to make it all the way to the final boss, kit ourselves up a bit. We're also level 15, almost at 20,000 health. Then we went over to the merchant, had a little look for his wares, but we didn't need to worry about too much, even though I did grab a couple of exalted flesh just to see if it could boost my damage a little bit extra. Then we headed over to the boss door, opened it up and went inside to tackle the Nightlord, the Gaping Jaw. In here I probably did something that wasn't worth doing. Even my friend said don't, it's not going to be much damage, but because of how much FP I had, I really wanted to try out something with an Ash of War on it, and I did have something in my inventory that gave me Prelatis Charge, so I decided to equip that just to see how much damage I could actually get from it. After popping around for a little while and waiting for my opportunity, I did use it, and it kind of took a while to get over to the boss. Didn't do anywhere near enough damage as I thought it would, and then the boss decided that he had enough of me as well and was going to actually grab me with his Gaping Jaw attack. However, my health is so crazy at this point that I didn't even notice it going down. You don't even see it going down on your health bar. Get back up, dust myself off, and then equip a weapon I should have from the very start. So I went back to the Grafted blade and gave him a bit of vengeance for what he dished out to me earlier. Honestly, this was some crazy fun run. It's the most damage I've currently seen, especially personally, and this weapon alone is pretty game breaking as it is, but a whole bunch of fun to use. But yeah, if you've had any runs such as this, I'd love to hear from you guys and girls. Let me know in the comments if you've been able to dish out a crazy amount of damage or put a nice build together. And after we successfully defeated the run, obviously we looked over our rewards and managed to get hold of a whole bunch of relics that I'm going to nicely deconstruct for a little bit of merc later on. But yeah, still a great run. As always, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. There'll be a load more Elden Ring Nightreign content from me. For now, take care. I'll see you on the next day.